Let's go. Personal growth with the side of honey. Good for the health, healing yourself. Take a little drop.
Hey honeys, welcome to the Hey Honey podcast, a space for all conversations. So you all, as you know, we start our episodes with a little drop of honey, and here goes it for us today. Here goes it. I don't know why I said that, y'all. Every morning you have two choices: continue to sleep with your dreams or wake up and chase them. My gosh, my goodness. So y'all, I don't know about you, but there was a certain phase and point in life where I just felt like I was like very unprepared or very ill prepared for life, be it within my career, within relationship, just absolutely anything. And I realized there were so many messages I did not receive, guidance that I did not get. And we're going to talk about that today. So Jonathan, can you introduce yourself to the people?
Well, yes, of course. My name is Jonathan Gross. I am a certified health and life coach, and primarily I assist individuals who are feeling stuck. Particularly introverted solopreneurs.
True. Y'all hear that?
Yeah. And individuals who are feeling stuck in their career.
I love it. Okay, let's talk. So as I intro the show, I was talking about different messages that I believe I missed. Like, so as an adult, certain things that I needed that I maybe didn't have, and we can delve into that in a moment. But let's talk about what your experience has been with that. When you think about present day as an adult, what are some things you maybe believe that you missed as a child?
Yeah, I feel like there's so many different things that I feel like I've missed growing up. And a lot of those things became a little bit more, I became more aware of them when I started hearing things like, you should know that by now. Or doesn't everybody do this? I always do that. No, I don't do that. Never even thought about doing anything like that. But things such as developing relationships and really cultivating strong relationships, I think, is one thing, and friendships as well. I'd say another thing is speaking up for myself, being an advocate for myself. I think that's been something that I feel have felt ill prepared for, whether it be in the context of a career or in venturing into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
You know, it's really important to be able to advocate for yourself. And sometimes when that skill set hasn't really been taught or you haven't learned it, you feel like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Or like you're behind, like you're like there, like everyone else has like started the race and they're already up here close to the finish line. And then you're just like lacing up your shoes or something.
Lacing up my shoes and wondering if I am actually supposed to be in the race, should I actually be,
right.
At one of the restaurants meeting the people who finished the race.
Right. I don't know why we took that thing as far as we did. Interesting. What do you? It's okay. Who do you think was responsible for teaching you these things or making certain lessons available to you?
A lot of times I think about my parents, and of course, as we grow up, we attribute a lot of our life skills to what we learned when we were growing up. So I would say a lot of it goes back to my parenting. And it wasn't to say that it was bad in any form or fashion. I think I learned what I learned. Yeah. But I think when I look, and of course this is all comparison, when I look at other individuals, it's, this is just what we did.
Okay.
As a part of their life. And sometimes it feels like there was something that I did not have as part of my life experience. So sometimes it feels like there was definitely a deficit in whatever it was that I was living at the time or now.
So do you think that, like, when we think about like the deficit, do you think that created, what did that create for you? I won't offer you a word, but what do you think that created for you in terms of like how you felt about yourself or how you showed up in the world or like just how you operated in some of those unknown spaces?
Well, I want to hear what you want to offer, but I would say...
Well, I want to hear where you know.
Well, and I want to hear what you
want to... you go first.
But I would say for me, one thing that just resonates so loudly in my mind is this: you're not ready. So that brings up this sense of anxiety. And it also brings up a sense of frustration, and it's brought up a sense of shame as well. Like, gosh, okay, so I'm at this age This is something I should have learned. I didn't learn it. So now I'm supposed to be learning this. But I'm also supposed to be learning what I'm supposed to be learning right now.
Right.
So I'm double learning. How am I supposed to learn all this stuff?
I'm double learning everything.
Double learning.
The only word I was going to offer, and I'll speak to my own experience, it was more so like it brought up a lot of insecurity for me. So when I got to college, and that's why I didn't want to like offer a word because that maybe, would not have been your experience.
Been a good one.
Okay, well, of course it would have been. I mean, come on. But yeah, for me, it brought up a lot of insecurity because it is a thing of everyone else is ahead. Everyone else knows what they're doing. Everyone else had all of these life experiences. And here I was, little girl from the country, with not all of these things. Mm-hmm. And I felt less than. And even, it was a matter of shrinking or kind of caving into myself because it's like, why don't I know these things? Mm-hmm. And it's similar to what you were saying. How can I learn what I needed to learn while also trying to not get behind in this current area of learning as well? Yeah. And I think that's what created that spin of anxiety because it's like I don't have enough time. It's a constant of something has to be done. Oh, but I have to also learn this because I didn't learn that in first grade or at around that time of life or whatever. So I was just curious kind of what that brought up for you. Okay, so earlier you were mentioning that there were certain things that you wanted to learn as related to like relationships, friendships, and all of that. Let's like go a little deeper with that. And what are some specific things that you wanted to learn about navigating relationships that you feel like you did not get as a child or as a younger person? Yeah.
One thing, I'll start with this. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I really did learn was how to listen.
You learned how to listen?
I learned how to listen because I was always being told. Right? So a lot of the parenting I had, it was the rationale behind what it was we were supposed to do was because I'm the parent.
Yeah, I said so.
That's it.
That's in the conversation.
So it's you listen. You go to school, you don't act up, you listen to what the teacher says. So I became very good at actually listening.
Yeah.
But what I realized when I was growing up is that I didn't necessarily develop the skill set of actually speaking and hearing my own voice and opening up to other people. Like I was always interested in hearing a little bit more. And while I have the ability to talk, one of the things I just recognize is that a lot of times it's me generating other individuals in conversation, allowing them to actually be able to speak. And sometimes when you're having a conversation with somebody who speaks a lot, they're like, oh, you talk a lot too. Like, actually, I was just...
haven't said a word.
I've said about 4, but it's great to hear what you're saying. And it is. But I would say that's one of the things, like not knowing how to speak up for myself, advocate for myself, and really express myself in a way in which I didn't feel like I was unkind.
Talk about that a little bit more then.
Yeah. Kindness was, I would say, a value. It's something that we felt was really important. You want to make sure that you're kind to people. You treat them well. You treat them right. You do the right thing. And I think while that's well and good, I think sometimes there can be this gray area of what kindness actually is.
Okay.
Right. So when I got in my 20s, and even in my 30s, it was a matter of, can I be kind and also say no? Can I be kind and also
direct.
And direct, right? Can I be kind and disagree? Can I be kind and also have a different interest? Because I found myself, particularly in my 20s, my early 20s, it's, this is what we want to do. And it usually be a ringleader, right?
Of course. Every group has a ringleader.
We want to do.
That's what you want to do.
Sure, of course. And so following that, but later on, it's recognizing, well, do I actually even want that? I don't even know what I want.
Yeah.
And it's because I've constantly been in this effort unconsciously of wanting to be kind. And I think it's a great thing, but I think it's even better to be aware of it so that you can find out, well, what are you actually doing this for?
Yeah.
Is it a selfish sort of thing? Are you trying to be kind because you don't want to disrupt anything? Or are you truly being kind because you want to
it makes sense? Or because you actually want to do that. So where does that land for you today, though? So like when you think about your reasons for why you're doing something, be it kindness or anything else. Well, let me do this. When it relates to like your voice, where are you with finding that?
Oh gosh, it's like puberty all over again, right?
Well,
maybe not as much for you.
Well,
but,
let's not talk about me.
But my voice was a little higher.
Mine too. No,
long
okay.
ago,
Yeah.
and when you're going through puberty, you're recognizing that your voice is changing.
Yeah.
You're recognizing that
That's a really great
there
example.
are things that aren't that were.
Yeah.
And I think even now I'm still in the process of finding what my voice looks like. And sometimes it does not sound, it's not as beautiful, right? I think a lot of times when we're going through changes, we expect that change to be it's just whimsical, it's beautiful.
Butterfly coming out of the cocoon.
It's a butterfly coming out of a cocoon.
And that's
with
not...
a ripped wing,
legs
it's
barely
just
working,
jacked up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really the process of change. Like change can really be ugly at times. It can be very uncomfortable, and I think allowing myself grace for that, and also recognizing that some people may not have grace for it, right? Some people may recognize that some of these changes, they may not know that you're actually going through a change. You're becoming a butterfly. Yeah. They didn't know that, and you don't necessarily announce that to everyone. Yeah. I'm becoming a butterfly, so this is what's going to happen.
Heads up.
No, it's you speak up a little bit and you see what happens.
There's that.
Yeah. It's a...
What has that been like?
It's been crazy. It's been crazy, some individuals have been very supportive of it, but I can recall many times where I've said things and it's like, what?
Like, who's this?
Right. Who is this? And that's been in the working environment, and then it's also been in the social environment. And it's really interesting. But I think in hindsight, when speaking up, I think there's a beauty in it that you can look back on, that you can be proud of. Okay, well, I may not have said that the way that I wanted to say that, and I can be humble enough to recognize that this can be better, but I also recognize that they didn't.
Go ahead and say it, yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah,
because I think it's similar to the example that you gave. I think when someone is finding their voice, and we talked about, it was one conversation you and I had about boundaries, how when people are first trying to put boundaries in place and trying to really, speak up for themselves, it's chaos. They're saying things kind of all over the place. They're not really sure how to say it, but it's just a matter of the imagery that comes to mind is like when like a calf is just born. Their legs don't work, right? They're trying to figure it out. So it's kind of clumsy, but eventually the more they speak up for themselves, the more they walk, in that example, their voice doesn't shake as much. They're more firm in what it is that they're speaking about because they have found that voice. But it's like you owe it to yourself to continue on that journey until you're in that space where it's like, no matter what the consequence is, I get to speak up for myself and use my voice in a way that works for me, because I can't limit myself based on the people that I'm connected to. Yeah.
Because a lot of times there's this thought about the consequence of it, right?
Which seems frightening.
You think about going to a restaurant, and there was one friend I had, every single time we went out to a restaurant, you can just count on her.
To do what?
To order something that she didn't end up liking. I'm like, why were you? Oh. But she would always let them know. Okay. Granted, she never got anything back, because she was concerned. But a lot of times, when we're experiencing or going through some of those changes when it comes to hearing what our voice is, it's, well, what is the reaction going to be? And when you're at a restaurant, it's, if I didn't really care for this, what are they going to do to my food?
Yeah, when they bring out
when they bring it out.
Yeah.
And you could trust, pray.
Yeah. Just hope for the best. Yeah.
But but it's always thinking about that consequence.
Yeah.
What's going to happen from the other side? What are they going to come back out with?
But did you let your brain go to that extreme? Like in terms of, if I say this or if I do this as I'm on this new journey, what is like the worst that could happen? Like, did you go there, or was it like just like a conversation by conversation type of thing?
Ooh, it depends. It really, so
on like person or situation.
It did. So I would say in in work context, I know that there have been many coworkers and colleagues who may have just accepted things the way that they were because I need this job. You know?
Yeah.
And so, of course, the thought is if I do say something, I might lose it.
Yeah.
And in that context, no, I wasn't as afraid. It was, and you say it, of course, with grace and with love as the intention, but this is the opportunity area that I'm recognizing right here and right now, and allowing, that's a possibility. But I also, going spiritually, I'm like, that's not really my source. Anyway,
yeah, absolutely.
So what exactly are you going to do to me?
Yeah,
nothing.
Right.
When it comes to socially, it's. I feel like maybe I have approached it a little bit differently. I think with some of the closer friendships, some of them have been very supportive. And when you dip your toe into certain situations, you sometimes see that. Even with talking to you, because you're always like, and just so you know, you can say no. I don't mind. I'm cool.
I think that's important. I'll interject this for a moment because I do think that's very important. I think that anytime we are connected to people and we are able to see that they are attempting to grow in some area, or if we just notice it, right? It's whether or not someone has said something, even though it's not my responsibility to manage that for you, as a friend, it's like, hey, this is something I'm requesting, and I want you to know, and in all honesty, it's totally fine if your answer is no. Like, live into that no, lean into that no, because then that also, I think, starts to build some sort of resentment within self. It's like, oh, why did I say yes to that? I didn't really want to do that, right? And you're going to come and do it and be amazing, and if you simply wanted to say no, then that's amazing. That's a wonderful answer to give as well.
Yeah. And it is, and especially, and I'm okay for introverts. I will say that's really key.
Yeah.
They have that meme, and it's like, I'm so sorry for saying yes to the plans I
said yes 2 months ago, and I did not want to go.
Yeah, when I was 2 minutes extroverted, and there've been many of those situations that have come up, or even not. It's just by default. Oh, sure. And then you find that your energy is lower, right? And as an introvert, it's really important to be able to protect your energy levels because then later on, you just don't show up the way that you really could.
But are you saying that did you ever think about no even being like an option? Because when you offer this now, if someone asks, it's maybe like an automatic yes, sure. Like, at what point did you start to pause and ask yourself, hey, do I actually want to do this?
I think initially it was always a yes.
I think we were groomed that way. We were trained that way.
Yeah. Initially it was always a yes. And then later on, I did start realizing, I'm like, I am getting anxiety.
Did you sing it like that?
Bad anxiety. Where I had to tell a friend one time, I said, you know what? And this was years after, right? But there were times where I was just showing up late to their events. And I had realized that I was showing up late and then staying in my car outside of their house, right?
So
or outside of the event.
Event starts at 7, you get there 7:30, and then you're sitting in your car after that.
Until like 8,
okay.
Right? And then going in, because then I'm experiencing anxiety for saying yes and for being late. And then also thinking about engaging with people. And it's a whirlwind of emotions where I just feel like either figuring out if I'm going to die or if I'm going to leave or if I'm actually going to go in.
Okay, so you have this whole whirlwind of emotions, right? At what point do you decide? So you go in about an hour late. What is the rest of your experience at the event like?
Yeah, so I eventually just decided to go in because I said I was going to. Right? Commitment. And when I'm there, I'm nervous. I usually, at that time, I would eat. That was my safe place as well. Didn't really have to engage with as many people. But one of the things that I found was that I would actually end up staying until the absolute end and help clean up. So in hindsight, I realized that in getting there late I was able to get there at the point where individuals were starting to be on their way out.
They're leaving. Mm-hmm.
So by the time it was at the end, I am energized now because the group is so small to the place where I'm very comfortable, and I can stay there. And then also help out with, the cleanup and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but it was very interesting just kind of realizing that, because I would attribute that to being an introvert and recognizing how being in very, very large contexts and groups added to my anxiety. And I didn't even know what anxiety was at that time, but I definitely knew what I was feeling, and it wasn't great.
Yeah, very interesting. Would there have ever been a time or present day, because some of it is attributed to, with that, you know what, this brings up a different point, because you mentioned like being an introvert a couple different times, and that's who you serve. When you think about being an introvert, do you think that is just naturally who you would have developed into anyway? Or do you think, had there been more of your parents doing X, Y, or Z, here's how you nurture relationships, here's how you build, here's how you interact with people, and we can never predict the future, of course, but do you think that it would have been different?
That's a really good question. I think it could be. I think it could have been. Thank you. That's why I have a question book. But I think it is possible that things could have been a little bit different. I think I naturally was a little bit more reserved and more to myself all throughout growing up. Yeah. But if I did see some of those examples where my parents were bringing in friends, right? That's not something that I really saw too much. Socializing. I never saw. Yeah. I saw my dad was very social, right? He can find somebody
to talk to about anything,
going to get their mail in a different neighborhood, and have a conversation with them for an hour. And it was very, we're in the car, we need to go home. Yeah. Right? But my mom a little bit more on the quiet side. But I would say they were very much to themselves. Yeah. My dad was working all the time. My mom was more of a quiet type. And I think if we saw it a little bit more, I think it's possible that things would have been a little bit different, because we would have at least engaged that particular part of us where it was okay. A lot of times when there was an activity that was a little bit more social that I was invited to, I declined it. I said, we're not going to do it, because I just had this expectation that my mom or my dad would decline it anyway. Right. So, and that was based on history. Yeah. Right. It's okay. We want to go to this sleepover. Who?
Yeah. We don't know
who's
them.
Who's their parents? How long have you known them? What do they do? What do they believe? What are all these things? At that point in time, I'm exhausted. Yeah. I don't know all this information. He's my friend. I just won't go. Yeah. We sit beside each other in English. And we were going to go to a sleepover. Yeah. Who knows? Right? It was a group of people. And I think if that were something that were encouraged a little bit more, right? Yeah, we had our group of friends, of course, in our neighborhood, but outside of that safe space where we could be looked after, we're close to home. I think it could have been quite different. And I think, honestly, it would have been very different if I also engaged individually. I think you and I were talking about the soccer. Yep. I played soccer in middle school. It would have been very different if I got on the high school soccer team and I engaged with them on that level. Right.
So interesting. So when you think about so what other messages? So we've talked about the relational ones and all of that. What other messages do you think you missed, or lessons that you didn't gain just throughout life, like where you were here present day trying to not recuperate, but trying to learn all these other things? Like, what are some other things you're learning now that you wish you would have learned earlier in life?
Gosh, I would say just how to handle and how to navigate through challenging situations. Okay. I think when you're in the context of a work environment, a lot of times, there's an SOP, there are other resources that are there. And while we are in a day and age where we have access to the internet, sometimes you just don't know in the moment, right? You get in a car accident. I was in a car accident last year. Yeah. And it's like, I know I'm supposed to call the insurance company. I know I'm supposed to call the police. I know the person who hit me doesn't need to go anywhere.
Right, because they're in the wrong. Well, whether they're in the wrong or not, they were in the wrong.
They need to be
Yeah,
present, right? But how do you have those conversations? Like, what do I need? What kind of insurance should I have had? What kind of conversations? Should I be contacting a lawyer or an attorney of some sort? What happens at the car? All these different things. It's like, it's overwhelming. And in that time, it's not, let me pull up Google.
Yeah, right.
And figure this out. You're in the moment. And there's so many things when you're in the moment trying to learn them, when you feel like it's in the moment when you feel like you're at a disadvantage.
Yeah, where I can see how that could present a major challenge, because it's not just you who's involved, but it's the other person. And then sometimes, I don't know if your mind does this, but mine will go a little bit more into the future. Well, if I make this decision right now, like, how does that impact something else? Because I don't know what I'm doing right now. And so I maybe don't trust myself to even make that decision. And then what does that mean for something else? Am I then going to beat myself up about it? Have such harsh judgment? Oh my gosh, you should have known this. Like, how could you be so stupid? Like, all those things that flood the mind because we feel ill prepared.
Exactly. Because whatever decision you make during the recovery period of the car accident is going to affect you 40 years down.
Absolutely.
And that's where my mind ends up going as well. It's like, and that keeps you stuck.
Yeah.
Right? It's these things. This thought can keep me stuck. It's the thought of what I didn't have, what I didn't learn, what I don't know that keeps me stuck from actually making the progress that I could be making if I just said, you know what? Don't know it. I can acknowledge that, and now I'm moving forward and allowing myself to actually learn it, right? So it all ends up being connected.
Absolutely.
Right? In every different situation, because everything sometimes feels like it should be perfect.
And it's just never going to be. It's never going to be perfect. So connect all that to, well, maybe not all of it, but you mentioned like the word stuck. What prompted you to choose Introverted Solopreneurs as the people that you wanted to help become unstuck?
Yeah. Well, for one, I identify as one. I identify as an introverted solopreneur. But one of the things that I see in so many other people is so much potential. And I think that's the beauty. Everybody does have a purpose. Yeah. And there's a plan for everybody. That's a good plan. And sometimes we get in our own way. Whether it is because of the thoughts that we have, the behaviors that we are either willing or unwilling to change or even aware of, and the vision that we have for the future of what is actually possible. And all of that keeps us stuck. And sometimes it's such a shame when you see news reports of individuals who may have passed before their time and they have so much potential. And that was something that I don't want to die being that man who was so full of potential. Yeah,
having stored up potential versus it being, how can I release that now, do certain things now, try new things now, and maximize on my time here. Because we never know how long that's going to be.
Exactly. So for individuals who are going into entrepreneurship and to become a solopreneur, these are individuals who are in business on their own. They're wearing all the hats. They're the CEO, they're the employee, their marketing, their communications, everything.
They're the copywriter, they're the videographer, everything.
So they're learning so many different things all at once. And sometimes when you're learning so many different things and you have to be somewhat proficient at managing the entirety of a business, you can get into a place where it's like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I should do this. I don't know if it's worth doing this. And then what happens? The world ends up missing out on something beautiful.
Yeah, they say, and we've been there, staying in that cycle of cycle. Did I say cycle?
You did.
The cycle of stuck. Staying there and then producing nothing at all. But thinking that there is a real reason why you didn't produce something versus it being because I stayed on this like hamster wheel and I kept going around it's almost like people will reach for other excuses as to why something didn't work out for them.
Yeah. And that's actually, that's the theme for this year. For me, it's I want to be wrong.
Oh, I didn't know this. Oh,
yeah, I want to be wrong.
Love it.
I want to be wrong.
You're wrong all the time.
Watch it. A lot of times, internally, we want to be right. Whether we know it or not, we want to be right.
Because we make being wrong mean something about us.
We make it mean something, right? But if we're wrong, what could that mean? What if we're wrong about the right thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of it being, I was wrong about the fact that I was not able to run a full marathon. I was wrong about the fact that I wasn't able to make my first 6 figures, my first 7 figures.
Yeah.
I was wrong about the fact that I'm not able to deliver a speech in front of thousands of people. I was wrong about everything that I accepted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because a lot of times thoughts or feelings or beliefs are projected onto us from other people, and we
absorb those, we accept them, and then we live through those.
Yeah, and unknowingly, we're living that. We're living by that limitation, and we miss out on life, and other people miss out on the life that we could have brought into their situation. So it's so very important for us to be able to be unstuck, and be able to press forward, and not necessarily believe and breathe life into all the things that we thought were right about us.
That's so good. I'm gonna sit and think about that some. I appreciate you being here with us today on the Hey Honey podcast. Thank you. Tell people, where can they find you? Social media, website, or I can just link it below. What's your preference?
Well, I'll go ahead and say it.
Okay, make it quick.
So on Instagram, you can find me at the.Quippo, Quipo.
Marvelous. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I'm so glad that you are breaking these internal barriers that are there in order for you to maximize your potential.
Thank you.
I love it. Y'all, that completes another episode of the Hey Honey podcast. I hope this episode brought you all some good news and one step closer to freedom. Peace out.
Sweet life on the right side. You can make it. Sweet life on the right vibe. We're not